What an informative speech, Simritha. Through our next talk, we will explore the importance of preserving cultural roots in a rapidly globalizing world, sharing this journey of balancing tradition and modernity to keep heritage alive for future generations. Please welcome our next speaker, Lasya Penumalli from grade 11 of TEDxInternational International School, and her talk on embracing our cultural roots in an ever-globalizing world.
I want you to close your eyes for a moment and think about home. Not just a place, but a feeling. The smell of your grandmother's cooking, the songs your parents hummed when they thought no one was listening, the festivals that fill your home with light and laughter. Now imagine waking up one day and realizing that those traditions, those pieces of you, are fading away. As you can see on the screen, there's an image of a little girl in Indian attire. Her hair styled in a unique traditional way, adorned with intricate jewelry, all dressed up for a dance performance. Well, that little girl is me, a young Indian girl growing up in Albany, New York. I remember that day vividly, the excitement bubbling inside me, the rhythmic jingling of my anklets with every step. I was proud of my culture, and that pride is what brings me here today. Hi, I'm Lasya Penumalli, and today I want to talk about something deeply personal to me, embracing our cultural roots in an ever-globalizing world. The world is constantly evolving, modernization is inevitable, and that isn't a bad thing. But as we move forward, it's important that we don't forget that we don't leave behind the traditions, values, and cultural identities that shape who we are. Because in the end, our roots don't hold us back, they ground us. Now I want you to picture this. Imagine sitting in a school cafeteria in the US, unzipping your lunchbox, and immediately the rich aroma of homemade Indian spices fills the air. You hear the whispers, see the wrinkled noses, and before you know it, you start wishing your food smelled like peanut butter and jelly. You start wishing you blended in. I know that feeling well. Growing up in the US, I tried to make my culture smaller. For example, by making sure my name was pronounced in a way that was easier for others, and ignoring parts of my identity that made me different. But here's the thing. Culture isn't just a set of customs. It's identity, it's history, and it's home. And when we erase parts of it, we erase parts of ourselves. Today, we live in a world that moves faster than ever, a world where globalization blurs identities and traditions. It's easy to say it's just a festival or it's just a language, but the truth is, when we stop talking about culture, when we stop engaging with it, we risk losing it altogether. UNESCO reported that more than 200 traditional art forms have disappeared in the past 50 years due to globalization and lack of patronage. We need to combat this, because culture isn't something we store away. It's something we live, share, and breathe. And the only way to keep it alive is by keeping the conversation going. Now, coming to the moment that changed my perspective. One day, a relative asked me, "What do you love about India?" I said, "The culture." They said, "What part?" I froze because I didn't have an answer. That moment changed everything for me. It made me realize that culture doesn't survive on its own. It survives because people choose to protect it, celebrate it, and share it. So I made a choice to embrace my roots, not shrink them. Ever since I was 4, I attended Balvihar heritage classes where I learned Sanskrit shlokas and about my Hindu culture. I've been learning Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music, which are rich and expressive art forms, for over 12 years. I cherish the rituals passed down through generations, but more than that, it's in my daily routines. To this day, before getting out of bed, before sleeping, and before eating, I recite these Sanskrit shlokas. And when I moved to India, I deepened this connection by visiting temples more regularly, by learning another classical art form called Kuchipudi, and by spending time with my grandparents and embracing even the smallest traditions, like the warm ritual of my grandmother oiling my hair with her homemade recipe passed down through generations. And through all of this, I realized something powerful. The more I embraced my culture, the more I understood myself. But here's the reality. Even in India, where culture is everywhere, I saw how westernization was slowly eroding traditions. Classical art forms were being replaced by trends. Rituals that once brought families together were now seen as outdated. It made me ask, if we don't preserve these traditions, who will? And more importantly, how do we make sure that these conversations don't end with us? Wanting to take this passion further, I joined the Vaitalika Foundation, an organization dedicated to preserving South Asian cultural art forms. As part of the core team, I work to support underprivileged artists, reconnect individuals to their roots, provide orphanages with classical arts classes, and spread awareness about these traditions. Because talking about culture isn't just nostalgia, it's activism. It's ensuring that our stories, our traditions, and our arts continue to shape the future. So this is how I took my passion further and took action, and you can too. So this isn't just my story, it's yours too. I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. What traditions have I unconsciously let go of? Have I ever felt the pressure to assimilate at the cost of my identity? What aspects of my culture do I want to pass on to the next generation? Because culture doesn't survive by accident. It survives because we choose to preserve it. Modernization isn't the enemy of tradition. In fact, they can coexist beautifully. The world is constantly evolving, bringing advancements in technology, education, and new ways of thinking that push us forward. But progress doesn't mean letting go of the past. It's not about choosing between modernity and tradition. It's about embracing and balancing both. We can embrace innovation, adapt to new ways of life, and still honor the traditions, values, and cultures that define us. Holding on to our roots doesn't mean resisting change. It means carrying forward the stories, rituals, and wisdom of those who came before us and shaping them to fit the world we live in today. Because when we blend the richness of our heritage with the opportunities of the future, we not only preserve our culture, we make it stronger. Culture means learning a classical art form, cooking a family recipe, celebrating festivals with their true significance, or asking your grandparents about their childhood. These small acts are not just traditions, they're bridges between generations. They're bridges between generations. At the end, this talk is just a spark. What truly matters is the conversation that it starts. So let's talk. Talk to your parents about their childhood. Ask your grandparents about the stories they grew up with. Share your traditions with your friends. And if you ever feel like you've lost touch with your roots, remember, it's never too late to reclaim them. Because culture isn't something we inherit and store away. It's something we live. It's something we carry forward. And the only way to keep it alive is by keeping the conversation going. So please keep this in mind when you leave today. And if you would like to take action immediately, please do donate to the Vaitalika Foundation, where we're trying to raise 1 lakh rupees. This campaign supports 12 months of our Kuchipudi dance program for 20 passionate children at the Cheers Foundation's orphanage. Remember, our heritage is our story, so let's keep telling it. Thank you.